Hello dear students, welcome back again to Chinmoy's YouTube channel. So in the previous episode, if you have not gone through that yet, I have already discussed about the functional classification of joints. Now here today in this video, we are going to discuss about the structural classification of joints. Now students, those you who have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel and keep on sharing my videos and so that you can get my updates whenever I am posting the new lessons and the sequence of these lessons. So please do share and please do subscribe to my channel, and if you have not yet gone through the previous videos, I'll be putting that in the above I link and as well as in the description box. Now let us start with today's episode of joints structural classification. Now, what are the learning objectives of today's lesson? The main learning objectives of today's lesson, we will be discussing about the main three different types of structural classification of joints. Now, what are those? First one is the fibrous joint, second one is the cartilaginous joint, that is, they are having slight or no movement. The fibrous joints are the immovable joints, and the synovial joints is the third one, they are freely movable joints. Now, if you have gone through the previous part, that is the functional classification, you will be understanding a few things in this video, otherwise you won't be able to understand. So please go through that first and then come to the part 2 of the structural classification. Now in this video we will be discussing about the types of synovial joints also. Now let us see what is there in the first slide. Now the structural classification, on what basis we are dividing them structurally? So they are mainly divided on the basis presence or absence of the synovial cavity. So this synovial cavity, what is that? It is a space between the articulating bones. So these are all new terms. So it is the space between the articulating bones, and this synovial cavity is having a fluid which is called the synovial fluid, and the kind of connective tissue that binds the bone together. On the basis of that only we are dividing this structurally. Now the structurally they are classified as we have told earlier also: the fibrous or the immovable joints, the cartilaginous joints or the slightly movable or the mostly the immovable joints, and the last one, that is the synovial joints, that is the movable joints. Now we will be discussing each and every one in a detailed way with the diagram. Now the first one are the fibrous joints or the immovable joints. Now there is no synovial cavity in this type of bones. Now let us refer to this diagram. I think you can recall in the previous slide also, in the previous video also rather, we have discussed about this one. This is the suture which is present in the skull. They are being held together by the fibrous connective tissue. They are immovable or very slightly movable. So when they are slightly movable, that part is during the birth of a child. So during that part only the sutures or this type of joint are slightly movable, and generally these are all immovable kinds of joint. And there are three types of this fibrous joints. First one is the sutures, second one is the syndesmosis, and third one is the gomphosis. So no synovial cavity, held together with the fibrous connective tissue. They are slightly movable, and there are mainly three types of immovable or fibrous joints, that is the sutures, the syndesmosis, and the gomphosis. Now let us move on to the next one, that is cartilaginous joint. Now in this cartilaginous joint also there is no synovial cavity, and with what the bones are held together? They are held together by the cartilage, and they are, we can say that is synchondrosis. Synchondrosis, what is that? It is the temporary joint in the long bones and the permanent joint between the rib one and the sternum. So that is called the synchondrosis. And the second one is the symphysis, that is the joints between the vertebrae. So the joints between the vertebrae, which is also bound with the cartilage, this is partially movable or slightly movable, we can say. These are slightly movable or immovable joints. Slightly movable, or we can say that they are immovable joints. Okay, they are very much slightly movable or immovable joints. They are actually present in between the vertebrae. They are present in between the rib one and the sternum. So we can, if we can show in this diagram, I don't know whether I can just zoom it or not. I'll try. Wait 1 second, I'll try to zoom it. No, it's not possible actually. Okay, so actually you just try to focus in this diagram. I think you will be able to focus here. So in this diagram we can see that this is between the rib 1 and the sternum. So this is the sternum, this is the rib 1, and this part is the synchrondosis, or it is a cartilaginous joint. Now here you can see this vertebral column. These are the small vertebrae, and in this part there is a cartilage which is joining both of them. So this is a slightly movable joints. When we are walking, when we are bending the vertebrae, these are bending or moving. So this is called the symphysis, so joints between the vertebrae, and these are all under this cartilaginous joint. So is it clear to everyone? No synovial cavity, they are held together with cartilage, and the first one, they are called synchrondosis, that is the temporary joints in long bones, and the permanent joints between the rib 1 and the sternum, and the second one is the symphysis, that is joints between the vertebrae. So this is all about this cartilaginous joint. Please go through this diagram. I think you will understand from this diagram only. This part, this one is the both the rib cage with the shoulders and with the backbone. From that only we have taken this part of vertebral column, and here this part I have taken to show you the sternum and the rib one. So go through the diagram and go through the video so that it will make you clear what is cartilaginous joint. So let us move on to the next one, that is the synovial joints. So what are synovial joints? Here mainly the synovial cavity is present. So here we can say the synovial cavity is present, and bones forming the joints are united by a surrounding articular capsule. So they are surrounded by an articular capsule and accessory ligaments. They are surrounded by articular capsule and accessory ligaments. So you can refer to this diagram. If you are seeing this diagram, these two are bones, and there is a part which is joining both the bones, that is the articular cartilage. And this cartilage, there is a joint cavity which is containing the synovial fluid. So synovial cavity is containing the synovial fluid here, which is making the joint or the cartilage lubricated. So lubrication is very important here. If the cartilage is not slippery, if the cartilage is not lubricated properly, the movement will not be free. So synovial joints are freely movable joints which are held by fibers called ligaments. Now this outside part is the ligament. This is the ligament, and these are always the freely movable joints. These are always the freely movable joints. So how this free movement comes? Because there is a articulate, this articular cartilage is being what we can say, being lubricated by the synovial fluid which is present in the synovial cavity. So make it clear, synovial cavity is there, fluid is there, articular cartilage is there in between two bones which is being lubricated, and this makes the movement very free. So there are 70 freely movable joints in our body. Now you can take the example of knee, elbow, shoulder. These are all freely movable joints. Now let us move to the types of synovial joints or the freely movable joints, which we should know and are very important. So when you are going through this lesson, you should always go through every diagram I have given you with the labeling. So this will make it clear for you all. With the pictorial representation, you are very clear with the both the lesson, as well as we can say that whatever notes I have given here, they are very important, and I have made it very precise for you all, and please go through it properly. Now here we are going to discuss about the types of synovial joint. Now first, when we are discussing about synovial joint, the first thing which comes to our mind is the hinge joint. So what is a hinge joint? The hinge joint is actually it is a concave surface, and another is the convex surface. So the concave surface is fitting with the convex surface. So I think you remember what is a convex lens and what is a concave lens. So this is the convex and this is the concave. So this convex part comes and fits with this concave part. So these two, suppose this is one bone and this is one bone. So these two surfaces come and meet together. So this convex part is coming and meeting together with this concave part. So here the convex surface of one bone is fitting with the concave surface of another bone. Now movement is primarily in one direction and on a single plane only. The movement will be in one direction and on a single plane. The motion is similar to that of the hinged door. If we are having a door which is having a hinge, so that is moving in a single plane, the movement is primarily in one direction. Now what are the main types of joint we can place in this category? They are mainly the elbow, the ankle, the knee joints and joints at the end of phalanges. So the elbow joint or the ankle or the knee joints, we can say that they are moving all in one direction and in a single plane. Now if you try to move a door also, it will not be moving in the opposite direction. If you are moving it, if you are trying to close it, it will close and it will not go in the outward direction. So like that only the elbow, ankle and the knee joints or the joints at the end of the phalanges, they all are moving in one direction and in one single plane. Now let us see in this diagram also. So these are all hinge joint. This is the knee joint and this is the elbow. So here you can see the convex side is coming and joining with the concave side of another bone. So this is the concave side which is being joined with the convex side. Here also we can see that this is the concave side and this convex side is coming and meeting with that convex side. So if you remember the convex and concave lenses, it will be easier for you that both the bones which are having a convex structure and a concave structure, the surfaces are like that, they are coming and meeting together forming a hinge joint, and they will always move in one direction and in one single plane. So I think this is clear. So this is the first important synovial joint, that is the hinge joint. So what is the second important one? This is the ball and the socket joint. This is also a very important joint and we should know about this. So what is happening here? There is a ball-like structure. As the name suggests, we should know that there is a ball-like surface. So there a ball-like surface in one bone fits into a cup-like depression in the another bone. So here the ball-like surface, if you refer to the diagram, you can see that the ball-like surface is coming and fitting with the depression in the other bone. So what is the depression? This depression here is the acetabulum of the hip bone and this is the head of the femur. So this femur bone is coming and it is getting fixed with the depression or the acetabulum of the hip bone. Now here this joint movement is primarily in the three planes of motion. So they are able to move in three planes of motion. We have told in the hinge joint that they can move in only one plane of motion, but here they are moving in three planes of motion, and the example is mainly shoulder and hip joint. So if you see that shoulder and hip, they are moving in three different planes of motion. So that these are the main two important examples of ball and socket joint. And now let us see what is there in the next type of synovial joint. Now here comes the gliding joints. This is another important joint. So what are gliding joints? These are actually, they are having articulating surfaces of the bones are usually flat, and this one bone slips over the other. So you can see, refer to the diagram here, the bone surfaces are articulating surfaces are flat and one bone slips over the other bone. So only the side to side or back and forth movements can take place. So as one bone on the top of other bone, they both are having a flat base and they are usually slipping one over the another. They are having side to side movement and back to forth movement. Now joints, what are the examples of this type of joints? Gliding joints are mainly present between the carpals, tarsal bones, the sternum. That is, what is the sternum? The sternum is the breastbone, and the clavicle, that is the collarbone, the scapula and the clavicle. Now let us refer here to the first diagram. Now here we can see the carpals. Now this joints both in the hands like carpals and the tarsal bones, both are having this type of joints which glide one above the another. So for this only you are able to fold your hands, you are fold your fingers. So these joints, they are gliding in nature and they are helping you to fold. Now next comes between the sternums. So this is the sternum or the breastbone, and this is the, we can say that this is the collarbone. So this is the clavicle or the collarbone. So the joint in between the collarbone and the sternum is called the sternoclavicular joint. So that is the sternoclavicular joint. And it is also a type of gliding joints where both the bones are usually flat and once a bone slips over the another. Now the bone between the scapula and the clavicle, what is it called? It is called acromyoclavicular joint. And this are the important names you should know, but it's not important for you to memorize all these joints name. You just remember carpals, which are having both the flat bones, one bone slips over the another. They are having side to side and back to forth movement, and examples are mainly the carpal bones, tarsal bones, and the sternum, the breastbone, and the joint between the sternum and the clavicle, and the scapula and the clavicle. So is it clear till now? We have discussed about the structural classification of joints, three structural classification. Then we have come to the classification of the types of synovial joints. Now we are here with the third main part of the main type of the synovial joint, that is the gliding joint. So next we are moving on to the fourth type of the synovial. So till now we have discussed about the three main types of synovial joints. So first one was hinge joint, second one was ball and socket joint, third one was gliding joint. So the previous one was gliding joint. Now we have come to the fourth one, or the pivot joint. So what is a pivot joint? We can say that when a rounded or a pointed or a conical substance of one bone articulates with the ring forming partly by another bone and partly by a ligament. So here you can refer to this diagram. You can see that the rounded surface of one bone is being attached to another bone by a ring, and it is joined partly by a ligament. So this is the pivot joint where one surface is round or pointing, articulating inside a ring-like structure, and that is being bound by a ligament. And the movement in this case is actually rotational. You can move or you can rotate it. So the movement is rotational. So in the previous slides, if you remember, one was moving in the three planes. It was able to move in three planes. The rotational movement, it was not like this. The first one was only moving in one plane, but this one, it is moving primarily in rotational movement. So what are the examples of this type of pivot joint? The first one is the joint between the axis and the atlas of the vertebrae. So you can rotate when how you can say that when we are doing neck exercises, when we are rotating our head, the axis and the atlas of the vertebrae, the first two vertebrae, they are rotating our skull. So the skull is resting on that, and which is helping our head to move in a rotational movement and both sideways. So if you are telling suppose you are telling no to someone, you need to move your head sideways. So this movement of your head sideways is also dependent on this pivot joint. So this is mainly helping you in a rotational movement, as well as it is helping the what we can say that movement sideways also. Now there these type of joints are present in between the radius and ulna. Now in this picture we have taken an example of radius and ulna. So this is also helping in the rotational movement of the radius and ulna. So they are primarily, they are moving sideways, as well as we can rotate that part of the bone. So this is the pivot joint. This is the fourth type of the synovial joint. Now the last one, this is the saddle joint. So what is a saddle joint? So this term is very much new to you all. So this term you have not studied in previous classes like 5th, 6th, 7th, or whatever. In whatever classes you have studied movement and locomotion, you have gone through different kinds of joints. But this joint is very much new to you all. In the 9th standard you are studying this. So what is it? So the articular surfaces, which are formed by specialized hyaline cartilage of both the bones, are saddle shaped with one slightly convex and other slightly concave. So there is a saddle shape of bone and one is slightly convex and another one is slightly concave. Now movement is either side by side or back to forth. And what are the examples of this? That is the joint between the metacarpal of the thumb and the carpal. So the joint between the metacarpal of the thumb and the carpal. Now here you see this, refer to this diagram. Now when we are referring to this diagram, we can see these are the metacarpals. So these are the carpals. So the joint between the metacarpal of the thumb and the carpal, this one is the saddle joint. So is it clear? So this one is the saddle joint. And you can see that this is the saddle shape. So these specialized saddle shape, this one is slightly convex and another is slightly concave. So this is the saddle shape. Now saddle joints, they are permitting a wide range of movement. They help to move either side by side or back and forth, and the name of this saddle joint has come from the saddle shaped bones. That is, one is slightly convex and another one is slightly concave. So this is all with today's video on the structural classification of joints. So we have gone through all the structural classification of joints, the 3 structural main classification with the 5 main classification of synovial joints. So this is all for today. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel and don't forget to write your queries in the comment box. And please do share it with your friends, and I'll be posting the updates every week so that you can get my updates and you can learn this lesson in a systematic manner. Please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.